Broadcasting live from our flagship studio in Atlanta, Georgia. This is Scaling in Public, the next 100 Business RadioX markets. Featuring founders Lee Cantor and Stone Payton, along with some of America's top coaches, helping them grow the network with real strategy, real lessons, and real accountability, all shared in public. To learn more about the proven system that turns podcast interviews into a perpetual prospecting pipeline through generosity, not gimmicks, go to brxhq.com and download the free Business Radio X playbook. Now, here's your host.
That was a great intro. I love that. All right. So I think maybe we should start by talking about why we're talking about video. And so I know why Sanjay and I are very pro videos. So Lee and Stone, like I'm wondering, like if you could explore, like why are we even having this conversation? Is it because you think that might be an avenue to growth, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I absolutely think it might be an avenue for growth. One of the challenges, and I don't think we've just created this as a perceived challenge for ourselves. I think it's genuine. It's one thing to be in a local market where you have people come into your studio and you get to meet them face to face. You see the body language, you create that relationship, and that model is very well baked. It works. It always works. It never doesn't work. If you run a local studio, you're going to help people and make money. Now, Lee and I have taken on the challenge of trying to get other people to do what we're doing here in Metro Atlanta and a few other communities across the country, to get someone in a market where we're not, like a Memphis or a Pittsburgh or a San Diego. And I feel like, and I think Lee's beginning to feel the same way, it's almost, we can use all of our tools and strategy to get to meet those people, begin to build a relationship. We can invite them on a show, but we've been audio only for so many years. And it's not the same experience. So as they begin their experience with Business Radio X, it's not really the thing that I want them to do, right? It's a Zoom audio recording. And I've used this analogy before, but I'll share it here again. I almost feel sometimes that I'm jumping in a rowboat, rowing out to the middle of the bay, and then trying to sell somebody an outboard motor. And so, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I do think there is very likely a place for video, maybe even at the local community studio level, but certainly in this scaling effort. Lee?
Yeah, that's been our experience. We've been doing audio, we've been doing in-studio work for so long, and that's worked for us. But since the pandemic and we transitioned to more video, we just haven't leaned into the video aspect of doing what we're doing. And obviously you can execute this through technology in a variety of ways. But in our work in a studio, having headphones in a place where we're all there intimately connected, it creates this bubble of intimacy that we just haven't been able to replicate using video.
One of the things that kind of strikes me in terms of the business that you're in is I think you've said it a couple of times now, is building relationships, right? It's all about building relationships. And to me, and I think to Adam as well, one of the things that video does is allow you to build those relationships, because one of the challenges when you're listening to somebody audio only, and I have this challenge all the time, you're listening to, NPR or whatever it is, and then you actually see the person and you're like, the picture of the person doesn't match up with what the image is in your head. And because of that, if you're seeing them outside in the real world, you wouldn't think that this person is the person that you've been listening to. But when you're being able to see video of them all the time, like this happens to me, I think Adam, it's happened to you as well. People will come up to us because they know us from the things that we've done. They've seen us, and then they compare the things that we've said and then what we look like, and then know when we're out in public and be able to talk to us. And really that helps build those relationships. And so the thing that you said there, Lee, about, these communities and building those relationships, I think video is actually one of the strongest tools that you have in terms of helping that happen. And so I think one of the things that both of you have said before to us is that there's like this hesitancy in terms of doing video. Like what's like the core of that? Why the hesitancy?
Well, it's a bias, and it goes to what you said. You're focused on how the audience sees you. and strangers come up to you because they've seen your video and they think they know you or whatever. In our world, the guest is the most important person. So the person that I'm interacting with in person, I am seeing face to face across a table, as opposed to like we're doing now, across a video screen. So that relationship, I believe, becomes deeper faster in person than it does via Zoom or Riverside
So
or whatever platform you're using.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good argument. But this kind of it's kind of the similar argument of like we can only have good company culture if we're all in the same building in an open workspace. So I think it's a similar kind of argument. And so I think my response to that would just be that I think you can still build high quality relationships via video. And I think you can do it via video, like interview like this, but there has to be like a lot of intentionality baked into it, because otherwise you miss out on the chit chat, or you miss out on the follow up, or you miss out on the, whatever. So yeah, I think you can create a formula that would make that work. It just takes a lot of intentionality.
Right.
But I
And
think
I think you're exactly right, Adam. I think that that's a perfect analogy, is that a lot of businesses want to go back to office because they want to create that serendipity and all those kind of water cooler moments that are difficult to replicate, virtually. So what would be your recommendation if we were to go into video on how to create kind of those deeper relationships? So how would you recommend building that intentionality and those meaningful moments using
What
video?
what I've done before, and Sanjay, you may have a different opinion on this from some of your experience in hosting. So what I've done before is I've done like a pre-interview call, like just a get to know you call, and use that as an opportunity to better understand their story, better understand sort of what they're about, and then create and craft questions around that for the interview.
When you
And
say
that
call, are you saying call like a video call or
Yeah,
like
like a Zoom call.
a
Yeah,
phone call?
just to get to know you. Like, oh, tell me your story. Let's talk about that sort of Zoom call, and then that can sort of pre-inform the actual interview itself. But then, Sanjay, I mean, I know you do a lot of like pre chit chat on one of our podcasts. Like, maybe you could talk about that too, because I think that's a slightly different approach, but has the same effect.
Yeah, I tend to do it during the recording. So before we actually hit record, I'll start talking to them, just to understand a little bit about their story. But really, it's kind of a multiple purpose. One, for some of the folks that don't come on these shows often, it's to get them comfortable and kind of loose, and just we'll chit chat and laugh about stuff or whatever. I just recently had somebody on who was originally from New Hampshire, and I mentioned, like I remember the New Hampshire quarter and the old man in the stone or something. I don't know exactly what it was, but basically the New Hampshire quarter had that. So I started asking him questions about that. And so he went into this long kind of conversation about this, and it kind of loosened him up. But it also gave us this kind of common connection that, hey, like we're friendly or whatever before we leaped into it. One of the things I did want to kind of mention and kind of talk about and dig into is that the way we're kind of framing this is that it's an either or, right? In person or online video. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? The in person can still have video. You can still develop that content, that relationship, and everything else in person. And then kind of the second order of this, I think the place that this adds a lot of value, not just for y'all, but also for the other people that are running Business RadioX affiliates, is that the guests that are coming on will find value in this, because they'll have the opportunity to kind of share this video and kind of spread it around. Like there's added value for them as well. And so I think for some of your folks that are affiliates to be able to attract these guests that they want on the show, this becomes another kind of quiver in the what is that thing called?
I think it's an
arrow in the quiver. Arrow in the quiver. The thing is the quiver. The arrow's inside. Arrow in the quiver. Yeah. Thoughts on that?
Well, I agree that it's an and, not an or, and we just have to figure out the best way to kind of leverage video to achieve our objectives.
Yeah. So the objective is 100 Business Radio X by the end of the year, right? So I wonder if you can take just a moment and explain like why Business Radio X, like why would someone start a Business Radio X in their location?
So the reason Business Radio X exists is because I didn't like doing networking. That was really at the heart of it. Business Radio X exists because I did not want to go to another networking meeting and stand up and tell them why they should hire me to be a copywriter at the time. And so I'm like, there has to be a better way to do this. I'm an introvert. I don't like to go. I'm uncomfortable in that situation to begin with. And now I have to go every week and I have to stand up there and say the same thing to the same folks. So what I did was I had been doing podcasting uh, for a show called Dr. Fitness and the Fat Guy. And I'm like, I wonder if I can use this same platform as a way to meet the people I want to meet. So instead of having a show called Dr. Fitness and the Fat Guy, I had a show called Atlanta Business Radio. And on that show, I was interviewing business people. And it worked the same way as Dr. Fitness worked because I could invite people and they would say yes. And they would come on the show and they come in the studio. And at the time this was at the beginning of podcasting. So there wasn't, you had to explain that you didn't need an iPod to do, to come on the show. And, we're having kind of different types of explanations that you're having now. But they would come on the show and we'd have several guests at a time. And there was just this energy in the room that became a mini networking meeting. Everybody got to learn about each other. And we did it in a manner that was very conversational and it was very intimate. And everybody had headphones. We're in a room all together. They couldn't multitask. They couldn't go on their phone. They had to listen. So everybody was forced to kind of learn about each other. And in that environment, a lot of people were like, oh, I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know this or that. And they were able to interact. And then a lot of folks kind of said, hey, I want to know more. And they'd go off and learn more about each other. Or I would get clients like, how do I get a show so I can do the same thing for my business? And it became evident. It was obvious because they saw it happen. It was visceral. And that was something that, led to one client to another and another. And, all of a sudden I had a studio full of clients, of which Stone became one of them. And then it became, okay, can we take this same thing and move it to other places and do the same activity and help other people do what I'm doing, just in the different markets?
All right. So Stone, why would somebody, put one in, I don't know, Miami or something like that? Give us more on that.
Sure, happy to. And I think I'll start with why I did it. And I was invited as a guest. I was very impressed with it. The whole experience was very different than the traditional, I'm a smart CPA Saturday afternoon FM show that I was doing. I self-published a book back then. And I had I had all my little notes. I had that one joke that always landed. But it was a much more superficial exchange. Those kinds of interviews on cable access and those FM afternoon shows. Man, I walked into this studio and the clouds parted, the angels sang, the doves flew. It was just a very different experience. We had real authentic conversation about me and the work and the why behind the work and where I was taking it and what I had learned from it. And I built genuine relationships in the space of, 45 minutes, an hour with, I think it was like 3 other small business people and Lee and Amy, the 2 people that were hosting the show. So, I just had a marvelous experience, and I couldn't figure out how Lee was making money because he didn't charge me to be on the show. He didn't run any commercials. I stayed after. He explained that to me. I probably not that day, but within a couple of days, I wrote a check and he helped me build my own show. And then, it wasn't 90 days before I wrote a bigger check and bought myself a different career and became partners with Lee. But the real motivation behind it all, if you look under the hood a little bit, is I'm anything but an introvert, if you're not picking up on that already. But I like very much being the guy who knows the guy. And I absolutely detest and will never be that person that says, please, baby, please. Can we please have a cup of coffee? And I explain what I do. And, will you please take my call? I always wanted to be positioned, and I was fortunate in an earlier career that we already were. It wasn't because of what I was doing. Always positioned that people sought us and me out. And so here in Woodstock, I run one of the studios here in Woodstock as well. I'm the social mayor. Everybody knows me. I'm the cool guy in town. I help support and celebrate everybody from the fire chief and the police chief to the local business leaders. And, Stone's the cool guy in town that everybody likes. And as a business, I can help other people who want to build real relationships real fast with this platform and our methodology. I can help them do that. I can help them do it, with a great deal less energy and a lot more fun. And so, if you're in the professional services arena, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're a fractional exec. It's just a heck of a lot easier and a lot more fun to use this platform as a way to build real relationships than any other strategy or tactic that I'm aware of.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then it strikes me that there's kind of two components to this conversation for you all, right? One is, can video build the type of relationships that you're looking to build? So can you bring in the guests? Can you build that rapport? Can you create those networks? Can you do that through video? And then the second is, can video help you in terms of Business RadioX expand your reach to get in front of more audiences in order to hit your goal to get 100 locations by the end of 2026? I mean, is that a reasonable way to sort of frame up the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I
think so.
think what we're trying to do, we're trying to get to 100 by any means necessary, and this is a tactic to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of several tactics that we're willing to explore. There's a saying Jimmy Johnson says that you are what your record says you are. So we don't have 10 yet. So we've been doing this for 20 years and we don't have 10. So whatever we're doing is not working. So everything is on the table to get to 100. So this is definitely one of the things on the table.
So there's an interesting kind of point here, and I think in some of this. So we keep talking about locations, right? Locations. It's a place where people come. This, going virtual like this opens up the opportunity where it's not really a location anymore, right? It's a person interviewing, and they're developing relationships. Now that I'm like thinking about what you're talking about, I think this does open up a whole new avenue for y'all, because right now you've been focused on people that want to develop relationships that are local to them, right? Because that person's going to come into the studio and all that. Doing something like this, where everything is virtual potentially, now opens up the opportunities for people that want to develop relationships that are not necessarily local, right? They want to develop relationships across an industry, across a vertical, whatever it is. And I think then this actually breaks you out of this kind of constraint where you're probably thinking, we haven't talked about this yet, you're probably thinking that these 100 are inside of the US. Whereas if it's all virtual, then it doesn't necessarily need to be. And the buy-in cost, I think, is a lot less, right? Any kind of thoughts on that and feedback on that?
Well, for me
Go ahead, Seth.
For me personally, I haven't gone as far down that into the continuum as you're describing, like having this entire virtual model, but I have, through our other coaching sessions, has lent itself to this, begun to broaden my definition of what a studio partner is, and maybe we ought to call them something else, to the extent that I'm even recommending do what I did when I came to Cherokee. We moved from East Cobb. I went ahead and did a dozen interviews virtually. So by the time I got to Woodstock, before I became social mayor, I had some traction. And there are some distinct benefits that I've experienced in having those local people there and getting those local clients and all that. But I am definitely opening my mind to a broader definition of what a studio partner is, and that there's very likely a place there for virtual programming. And for all I know, it ought to be the lead place. I don't know. So yes, I'm leaning in that direction some, Sanjay.
I'm not leaning in that direction as far as Stone is, or as you described. I think that what makes us unique and different is that there is a local element to this. And I'm not constrained by the United States as the only place these things can happen. I think they can happen anywhere in the world. But I think the value of having a third place where people go physically and meet in person, face to face, I think there's a place for that and those stories to be told in that manner locally that would benefit entrepreneurs that kind of lean into our methodology and our mission of being the place where these stories are told for the business community to support and celebrate local business. I think that there is a business model that can support that and that we can help them achieve that. If the target becomes anybody that has access to Riverside or any type of internet technology, and they want to just build their community, wherever that is, they can do that within that. Like, that doesn't discourage them from doing that. It's an and, not an or. In our model, obviously, the technology lets you interview anybody anywhere. So they can do that and still serve, Memphis.
I mean, I think there can be a local component and a non-local. I think to me, what it opens up is that if your model right now is all studio based, you're limited to have people purchase locations that are only wanting to network locally. And I think there's a pretty large number of professionals that want to network locally and beyond that. And so
Right.
I
So
think this
that
would
would
open
be
that up.
the target would be, I would want the ideal the avatar for the ideal client would be somebody who wants to make an impact locally. If they don't want to make an impact locally and they just, the world is their oyster, that probably is not the right fit for our
Okay.
ideal prospect.
Got it.
Even though obviously there's more of those people on the planet, I think the person we're looking for is the person that wants to say, you know what? I live here in town. I want to be the place where these stories are told. I think it's important for these stories to be told, and I want to be the one who tells those stories.
Got it. Okay.
So I think there's an interesting path here in terms of business progression, right? So I think that's an important thing that you highlighted there, that it's about the local. So it's a good distinction to have, to know that, okay, we're about helping build up local businesses. Yes, there's a maybe a remote option because, hey, every now and again we want to bring in an expert that's not local, and this is how we do it. But Stone, you actually made the comment earlier that before you moved over, you use these virtual opportunities to start building up the case for this. So is this maybe the right way for you to develop these affiliates to say, like, look, your first 6 months are virtual, so that you don't have to go all in and buy all of this equipment and spend all this with the hope and a dream that it's all going to work out, and that there's a less expensive option, and in those 6 months you figure out where that physical location is going to be based on what you see happen in those 6 months, and then you transition to a in-person and virtual opportunity. Is that something that makes sense in terms of the business?
I think that's an idea that has a lot of merit. I could see doing that. And even the half step being your pop-up studio in the middle, now with all these co-working spaces and all that,
Yeah.
get the Business RadioX remote kit. That's your second level of certification, all that stuff. And then you show up, every Friday at the local co-working thing and do your pop-up. Not that we're doing that, but I mean, it makes sense to me.
That's what we used to do at Tech Talk Y'all. We had a little pop-up studio we'd arrange every Friday. So,
but I
Yeah.
don't want to. While I want to be completely open-minded to all of this, I want to make sure I underscore, and I don't want to dismiss the sheer magic that happened. I'm at the house right now, but a mile down the road, I'm in a co-working space with a 10 by 13 studio. That is a magical place, and you can make a very comfortable living a couple afternoons a week running down there and giving people a chance to share their story and promote their work. So I don't want to dismiss that at all, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it's more about the on-ramp, right? Like, how do you make it
Yeah.
easy to people getting to that point? Because maybe they're not convinced, but this might be an easier way. Lee, did you have thoughts as well?
Yeah, well, I don't want to dismiss, like, the aspiring person that wants to be an authority in their community, and they want to be kind of known as, I know everybody, or I'm this connector, and I'm this really important cog in the ecosystem. By partnering with us, this is almost a cheat code, because, like, my studio in Atlanta is in the Chamber of Commerce for the Greater Perimeter Chamber. So, like, they invited me to put a studio in their office, literally in their office. So when they have a mixer, I can broadcast from their mixer because I'm down the hall. I'm in the same room as them. So some of our partners have offices inside of businesses. Like, one person has an office in a bank. One of them has an office in a co-working space. Like, multiple people have them in co-working spaces, but chambers of commerce are very interested in having the ability to have storytellers in their building. That's a win-win. So it's not like, oh, it's hard to get space, or I'm going to have to pay a fortune for space. A lot of our people don't pay anything for rent, and a lot of them get super discounted deals because they have partnerships with the businesses that they're located in.
So that's an interesting kind of concept that you've hit upon there. I don't remember if it's been discussed in previous episodes, but is that actually maybe your sales channel of talking to chambers of commerce and convincing them that they need a Business Radio X, not hosted by them, but empower them to go out and find the person that would run it there and have them be basically your sales agent? This is now going kind of far afield of what we were starting to talk about, which is doing video. But let's talk about the business, because the video is really just a matter of empowering the business, right? Spreading the word, giving a reason for people to come onto the show. But I think you just hit upon something super interesting that maybe should be the kind of point of this whole effort, right? The reason why you've only gotten 10 is maybe you're not talking to the chambers of commerce, which is who you need to talk to.
The chambers of commerce historically have been willing partners. They haven't been willing check writers. They're not, so far, we haven't been able to convince any, to my knowledge, of saying, okay, here's X number of dollars, you can be here. But they are willing to kind of co-brand shows. They're willing to distribute content. They're willing to have us appear, and to offer us, like in my chamber that I'm in the Greater Perimeter Chamber of Commerce, that is a chamber that focuses on the top end of the perimeter from 75 to 85 along 285 in Atlanta. So they had multiple offices that they were leasing, and they wanted us to be in there. They saw that as a value to their members, to themselves, and they wanted access to our platform. So we were able to work something out there, and they're a big fan of ours. They like the fact that we're there. It's definitely an asset. And those types of opportunities are available. The chamber leaders are open to having conversations with people who have a platform that can help tell their member stories. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That's not a big ask. That's not a big lift from a chamber standpoint to say, oh, I can invite my members onto your show like that.
Yeah.
That's
No-brainer.
an easy yes.
But Lee, and what if we asked them to lift a little more and we framed it up if what we brought to them was more than what you described? And we do have several examples of that. And we really did, in our mind, frame it up as sales agents. I like that terminology. I would love to have the president of the San Diego Chamber of Commerce actively be looking for someone to be our studio partner and be willing to collaborate with them. They would get all those benefits that our chambers have been getting, but they'd also go get us our person, or at least help.
Yeah, I mean,
dream.
we haven't been able to pull that off, but I mean, the chamber knows a lot of people, and a lot of people want more visibility within their membership, and our platform allows that.
So I wonder if I can pivot there back to video for a sec, and kind of frame it up this way. So we talked about sort of in-person versus virtual, and it was kind of implied that in-person is not video and virtual is video, but that's not necessarily the case, right? You can do
Right.
in-person and video as well. So I
Sure.
don't want to miss that. And I guess what I'd love to pivot to is what video brings to the table in terms of opportunity. And I think I would frame it up in a couple of ways, right? In terms of opportunity to build relationships, because I think video can do that both in person and virtual. I think it also can help from a networking perspective in terms of if you create video assets that the person you're interviewing then shares on their networks, you're now expanding into their network in a meaningful way. And then I think the third thing is it also can create video assets that you can then share and expose yourself on these other networks like TikTok, Shorts, or Reels, where it doesn't really matter how many followers you have, it matters how good your video is. And you can have 10 followers and have a video that hits 1 million views. And that gets a lot of exposure to your brand in general. So I wonder if we can sort of pivot in that direction. Does that sound okay? Like a good topic?
It does
Yeah.
to me, because I have some specific questions about doing video in a studio.
All right. Well, let's start there. What are your questions about for that?
But that's not too tactical. So you guys clearly know what you're doing with video, even virtually. But I suspect in a real environment.
Yeah, we've done real setups as well. Yeah.
So if we were at your place or my studio, I'm sure it would come out looking great. I'm also reasonably sure that if I tried to go to the studio this afternoon and video, the session, it's not going to look too great. And so how big and hairy is that to get it where it looks good? So that's one tactical question. And the other one is, Lee and I both have been hesitant, probably for psychological reasons too, but our overt reason that we have articulated over the years is it's so magical in there. I can't emphasize that enough. The last thing I want to do is add any friction to that set of intimate moments. So I don't want the lady worried about her makeup, or the guy worried about the mustard on his shirt, or the guy making sure he's sitting up straight. Whereas in the way I would do an interview this afternoon, yeah, they're a little nervous at first, but pretty soon, man, the microphone melts away, and they can refer to their notes. And so I would love to get to the place where I felt like, yeah, we can do video, we can capture it properly, we can produce it properly, and it's going to look good when we get done, and it's not going to add too much friction to the dynamic that we've had so much fun and success with today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you going to start, Sanjay, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
Well, so I would answer in reverse order, right? I think the video camera melts away the same way that the microphone melts away.
Yeah.
It may take a minute longer, but it's been our experience that once you're going, people get into it and there's no problem there. The other thing is just, it's just gear. It's just gear and proper setup. So there's various levels of gear, as you know. There's expensive and cheap. We do a 3-camera setup when we go out and about. We do a 3-camera setup and then 2 simple lights kind of coming down.
Well, that's for when we have 2 people, right? A host and a guest.
Yeah, if we have 2 people, yeah.
Okay. Y'all have more usually, so
Yeah.
it might be a little bit more than that.
Yeah. But still, you can do it. You could probably still capture everybody pretty well with a 3-camera setup. So it's just a question of a basic setup, kind of semicircle, cameras facing forward, lights coming in from the top, everybody's mic'd up. We've typically used lav mics for that just because it's easier and cleaner. But there's a lot of options for that as well. So
Yeah.
it's
What
not
about
bad.
the post-production? That's like for us, we record, send the audio off. It gets turned around pretty quickly, and it's pretty economical. What does like a 3-camera setup require from a post-production standpoint?
Same. We've got an editor that knows what's coming, and we've arranged a pretty decent rate with him, and he pulls it all in, and takes a couple days to edit it, and it comes back and it's fantastic. So same as.
So it requires a human to edit it.
When we do, for our podcasts and for in-person or virtual, we have a human, an editor.
Yeah, we don't do the AI thing. So yeah, there's AI augmentation, and some of it we can use if we want to. But one of the things I was going to mention there, so the video and the audio editing is done all at the same time, right? So all of that is pulled in. So it's not like it's somebody's doing audio and somebody else is doing video. Everything's done all at the same time. They've got editors that allow you to see all of it. And so you're piecing it all together all at the same time. So it's not like you're doing 2 different streams of production at that point. So
Then one other question, we don't have to address it right now, but what occurs to me is, you were describing some of the barriers or perceived barriers for, let's take that person in San Diego, like, oh, I got to go get the space. So I'm thinking, okay, now not only do you got to learn our methodology and our hosting mechanics and all that, and our fairly simple method of getting the material to us to produce, but now you got to learn the video thing. Is that, or do we price everything appropriately so that they really don't have to do much, and then we just take on the video production in-house?
Probably the second one is what I would do. So if it were me, I would create some kind of a simplified video kit for whatever price point you think your typical client, franchisee. I don't know how you want to put
Studio
it.
partner.
Studio partner. I think studio.
That's what we're calling them today.
Yeah.
When this publishes, I don't know, Lee'll probably come up with a cooler name.
Yeah. So whatever's tolerable for them, and create a kit and send it out and have a video showing them how to set it up, and then it's all just following basic instructions and then file delivery. So most every professional should be able to handle that pretty well if it's.
I think you're almost in a situation here where you've got 3 essential tiers that you could do with somebody that's a studio partner, right? A basic where it's video only over the internet, right? They're getting started. The regular, which is what you're doing now, where they actually have a space, and maybe you build it so that, hey, the the basic one where you're only doing online, you're only allowed to do that for a certain number of months. That's, getting your feet wet, figuring out where your space is going to be, whatever. Then that middle section is, look, audio only in a studio. And then the pro version is, hey, you get video, you do all this stuff, and you kind of pile that on. And that's for the people that, look, we really want to do something serious. We really want to help out people. We want to give them video assets so that it's not just people that are listening to the podcast. It's people that are, just flicking through Instagram or whatever and stumble upon, hey, this really cool business that happens to be in town, right? So I think you might be in a situation where you could set up these multiple tiers and have people graduate from just getting their feet wet to be all in.
And then from a video production standpoint, is it possible that the video element is doesn't require much of them once it's set up? Or is it something that, okay, I have 3 people, so I got to move cameras. Can it all be done in kind of a simplified manner? Or is it something that, okay, now I got to get into the video production business, so I got to learn how to light people. I got to learn how to, capture proper audio. Like how much of do I as a, because remember, this person is an accountant.
Yeah,
and now
right.
they're this person. So it's not like they're videographers. They have a day job that they're using this to help their day job. So
yeah. Well, I think the great benefit you've got here with the studio partners is that they do have a space, right? That's their space. That's this studio all the time. They're not setting up equipment and tearing it down every single time. So because of that, I think you could probably set this up. You'd probably do cameras that are a little bit wider, not fully cropped in with the person. And then you could set them up that way. So that way, if the guest is, shifted a little bit left or right, it's okay because the video editor can then crop in and be the right way. So that way, all of that stuff, really all then it is, hey, you got to turn on all the cameras and have them all.
So there
record.
is a way to make it as simplified as possible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're all sitting basically in the same spot.
Right.
I've come onto your show before and it's the setup's
You're not
the same.
doing cartwheels down the hall. Right. So it's a different type of content capture. So that is a dream that could come true. We could make a kind of a set where it's like everybody, this is where you sit, this is how it works if you want to do video.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
everybody's studio. Yeah, everybody's studio might be a little bit different because the orientation might be a little bit different. But once they set it up, I think they should be good.
I like the tiered idea too. Back to that ramp, right? I like that a lot.
Right. Yeah. So this is great.
Well, and then so focusing on the assets side, right? So can we do video? Absolutely. Can we make it, relatively straightforward? Absolutely. But then on the assets side, it gives you and it gives the person you interview access to so many more assets that they can then share across so many more different channels. And and to me, that's probably the most powerful component because I mean, if I'm an accountant, right, and I don't know, I bring a lawyer in to my new show, for example, and interview the lawyer on basic, I don't know, copywriting law or something like that. I can then hand that person a ton of assets that then they can about their own profession, their own expertise, and then they can go share on LinkedIn and look like a hero. And now they love me way more than they did before because they look so good in the content I've just given them, right?
This to me is also kind of like what TED has done, right? They've got TED, the main TED, and then they've got TEDx. They've got all these affiliates everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And those affiliates really are obviously about kind of uplifting people that are doing interesting things locally. But the video assets that they get from all of those, right? Some of them end up really, really shining. And I think for the two of you, what it creates an opportunity for is actually having Business RadioX kind of main social handles then that uplift some of these video assets that end up really taking off locally, right? Like you find, hey, in the middle of nowhere, there's this really interesting business or they had a really interesting video, and to be able to share that on the main Business RadioX channels for them to be seen even more and even further, right? That's a lot of value, I think, for somebody like that to then have their kind of story be told much more broadly than just somewhere locally.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And you guys have done a great job. I think that your persuasion has really worked on both Stone and I.
have we hammered you into submission now at this point? So then, based on that, then, and I know you've done this in other episodes. What are y'all committing to in terms of this, and like how are we going to move forward?
I mean, I think we're definitely going to test sharing videos, and I think that we're going to definitely explore how to create a tiered approach and what that would look like kind of financially, because part of what makes our platform attractive to partners is it's not super expensive, it's super affordable. So what does this mean if they add a video tier? You know, how is that going to change the pricing, and what are they going to get for it, and how are we going to be able to execute and deliver on that? So we have to kind of research that a bit. But that's all doable, and I don't think there's any harm in creating that tier and seeing, what the market will do with that.
So I'm going to throw my hat over the fence, as is my style. And this afternoon, I'm going to talk about our tiered system, not in any great detail. But part of my safety net is if I feel like we get going down that road and it is just too far outside our lane, then I think we go back to one of our core best practices, Lee, and we figure out a way to partner with best in class in that lane to help us execute on the gaps that we cannot or don't want to try to fill. And I don't know if you guys know anybody with expertise in that arena, but if you do, they might be a good collaborator.
I got somebody you can call. He likes to wear plaid shirts. He's
I know this guy that always wears hats. I've never seen the top of his head before. There's always a hat on there. I don't know why.
Exist. There is no top of the head. So, yeah.
Hey, there may be more to talk about, but I don't want to miss this. What is the best way for someone to set up a conversation with you guys if they'd like to talk with what you guys do at Edgewise Media?
Yeah, I mean, just Edgewise Media. Edgewise.media is the website, and there's a form on there to fill out, and just we'll book a time and have a chat. We give lots of free advice, and sometimes it turns into something else, and other times it doesn't, which is fine.
Fantastic. Don't let me cut you short. Yeah. But I wanted to make sure we did that, and I wanted you guys to know how valuable I have found this time together.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last thing that might be helpful is to just chat for just a second about not, because we've talked about capturing video and we talked about building relationships through video, and I think we assumed the power of video in marketing, but I wonder if we should explicitly say like what all you can do with video and why it's important. I mean, is it worth chatting about that for a second?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'll jump in, I'll dive in, and then Sanjay, interrupt wherever you want. So I think to me, the power of video is that we've shifted from a social media connected economy or space into an attention space. And what that means is what I said earlier, where you can jump on TikTok today, have 2 followers, and publish a video. And if that video is good enough quality, it can get 1 million views. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, that is completely doable today. And that's true to some degree for Reels, and that's true to some degree for Shorts, but TikTok in particular, that's very true for. And so, and the way it works is, when you publish a new video, it kind of shops it around to like a small group of people. And if that small group of people engage with that video, then it goes, oh, this is pretty good. Let me give it to a bigger group of people. And if that big group of people engage with it, it goes, oh, this is pretty good. Let me give it to a big group of people. And so a great example of that is our podcast, Tech Talk Y'all. We have a limited number of listeners, probably 1,000, 2,000 listeners, somewhere in there. And we've got videos on Reels and on TikTok. I think we've got a Reels video that's hit over 1 million views.
1.8 million.
Yeah, that have hit, several 100,000 views, right? And it just gets more exposure for us and gets more exposure for the podcast in general, and expands our audience. And so I think that's the power of video. The other power of video is YouTube, where you can create longer format videos, maybe not full length, but longer segments, and they be found on the YouTube search engine, which is, as everybody knows, the second biggest search engine in the world. And so it just gives you, again, more exposure for people that are looking for whatever it is that you do. And I think for hyper-local people, it actually becomes even more powerful, because if you think about it, there's not very many I live in Lilburn. There's not very many accountants in Lilburn, where if I'm on YouTube and I type in like Lilburn accountant, for business, there's not going to be any videos on YouTube for that. But if somebody did what you did and put it on YouTube, they'd be there. Anything to add to that, Sanjay? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered a lot of it. I think the opportunity to have something go viral like this is a lot stronger on some of these platforms. We just, obviously we do audio as well. We do distribute the podcast to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. There's just not that opportunity to go viral on a place like that. And so the videos is really where that opportunity lies. And so a lot of value is created there, and that kind of exposure. Like the whole thing that we're talking about in all of this conversation is exposure for small businesses, right? Exposure for these people so that they can be successful in the things that they're doing. And so why not leverage one of the best mechanisms that we have right now to do that?
That's the pitch.
Yeah, we're definitely game on trying.
Yeah.
I think we hammered them into submission a
Yeah,
while ago.
yeah.
Now,
Well, listen,
now we just bludgeoned them to death.
From this, we'll create some assets for you all, and you can use them however you prefer. But we'll make sure you've got assets in your hands ready to go, and we'll see how they perform.
Lee Stone, thanks so much for having Adam and myself on. This has been a lot of fun hanging out with y'all. Hopefully, it was helpful for y'all. But as always, we're always here to help for anything you all need.
Well, I know you are, and this has been a tremendous help already, and I know it will be as this effort continues to unfold. Gentlemen, thank you so much, and sounds like we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks for listening to Scaling in Public, the next Business RadioX 100 markets. Are you ready to enjoy a steady stream of discovery calls and finally stop being a best-kept secret? It's time to step out of the shadows and watch your coaching business grow. Let's fill your calendar. 10 discovery calls in a month, guaranteed. Go to brxhq.com to download the free Business RadioX playbook.
Okay, guys.